Hey everyone, my name's Elizabeth and I'm going to give you the tips and tricks and things I wish I would have known before taking the Praxis 5038. So this video is going to be divided up into 4 sections, and I'll put time slots in the description. I'll put time slots in the description of what's what, so if you want to skip the overview, you already know what the Praxis is, skip to X time, you get the idea. So the first thing we're going to go over is what is the Praxis, okay? And my bet is if you're clicking on this video, you've just been told you have to take a certain Praxis exam. So we're going to go over what the Praxis is, what my background was going into taking the Praxis, tips and tricks for studying, things I wish I would have known. The last thing we're going to go over is test day and what to expect. I took the test online proctored, so if you're going in to take the test, it's going to look a little different. Okay, don't mind me, I'm going to look up and read y'all the exact definition of what the Praxis is so I don't butcher it or give something misleading. And I also want to preface this video by saying this is what worked for me to take the Praxis, okay? I don't think there's any magical answer key that I can give you or any exceptional advice that you're not going to hear anywhere else. This is just what I wish I would have known going into it, what to expect on test day, and the things that worked for me in studying. Basically, the Praxis is an exam I had to take for the organization I'm going into. Since my undergraduate degree is not in education, it was in political science. A Praxis test is one of a series of American teacher certification exams administered by the Educational Testing Service, otherwise known as ETS. I was required to take this off the bat, and I wasn't sure how common it was, if all teachers had to take this regardless of their background and degree, but I found out that no matter what the degree, there are a number of states that require teachers to have a passing score on the Praxis exam. There is an ample amount of states that do. I would say probably over 40 on the list I saw. I will be teaching in Nashville in Tennessee, and each state has a different passing score. So the score I needed to pass was a 167, and I ended up getting a 184 on my first try. With COVID and everything else going on, I chose to take it online. There were testing centers open, but even though I love the testing center environment, I kind of tried to duplicate the same atmosphere that I would just for the safety of myself and others around me. I decided to take it online. So, as I mentioned before, my background going into taking this Praxis exam. I have no formal education in being a teacher. My undergraduate degree was in political science, and yeah, I'd had a couple teaching mentorship opportunities throughout college, but I've never been formally taught how to lesson plan, you know, specific content for my area, stuff like that. Like I said, I'm teaching in Nashville, and specifically secondary English. So secondary English is middle or high school English for those who aren't that familiar with the education terminology, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, middle high school English, so therefore I had to take the Praxis 5038, okay? And I looked for so many videos like this, and I couldn't really find any because the Praxis has recently changed. It's no longer 2 parts, it's only 1. It's all multiple choice, and there's no essay. It is, I believe, 125 or 150 multiple choice questions, no essay, so you're in the clear there. I found that out, that was a big relief. So now we're going to get into my tips and tricks on studying for the Praxis. Okay, my first tip is super general. The first thing I did when I found out I had to take this test that I was so nervous to take was this Praxis test book. I got this on Amazon for $23, okay? I mean, specifically some of the things I loved about this textbook is it gives a list of the authors and time frames you should know about. They'll ask you about literary periods in this, most likely. So if you're confused on exactly when the American Romanticism period is versus Transcendentalism, this is a great book for that. It gives really nice, easy definitions that are easy to digest. So I just went through these, through poetry structures. I mean, basically, this is the gist of the test, okay? And it's only this thick. It's underwhelming. It's a really great starting point, so I really recommend this. So that's my first tip, is get a physical prep book. Get a book that you can physically write in, highlight, and, you know, take notes in. I think that's super important. The next tip I have, use Quizlet. There are so many Quizlets out there that people have generously taken the time to do for you that go over a lot of key terms that, you know, they're likely to ask you about. One thing that I really struggled with, because I haven't looked at, you know, grammar structure in a long time. A lot of college for me was writing papers and taking tests. I hadn't needed to know basic grammar structure and the names and terms and stuff basically since I was in high school. Quizlets were really great at giving me specific terms, what to study, and for example, me, I really studied in poetry, okay? Something about like ballad and stanzas and iambic pentameter and all this stuff really confused the shit out of me, to be frank. It was wonderful in helping me specifically look up, I think I just googled like Praxis 5038 poetry. So many good Quizlets available. I'll try and link some of my favorites down below. It's such a great resource. It's free. If you have time, make Quizlets yourself. It's a great way to study. Make flashcards yourself on Quizlet. It's really helpful. My third tip, set out a timeline to study. This is something I wish I would have done. So my mentor in the organization I'll be working for told me, she was an English major, and she said to study for her practice she took about 5 to 6 weeks, 4 hours a week, okay? That's so digestible. I don't know why in my head, just because I'm a procrastinator, I decided to wait until the last minute to start studying. And I was like, okay, 5 weeks, 4 hours a week, that's 20 hours. If I start studying 4 days before, I can get in 20 hours. Don't do what I did. It worked out for me, but it would have been a lot less stressful and given me a lot more peace of mind if I would have broken up studying and properly scheduled when to study and what to study. For example, you know, start with literary terms in week 1, go to poetry and, you know, common types of poetry and stuff like that. Week 2, schedule out how you're going to study. It's going to take off so much stress. Although I passed, I really stressed myself out in those 4 or 5 days that I took to study, because I would study from like beginning to night. And, you know, no one wants to do that. I don't know why I crammed. I'm not in college anymore. I should have learned this. But I still procrastinated. Don't do that. Schedule out, figure out when you're going to study what, and you will thank yourself in the end. Okay, what are we on? Tip 4? Okay. Tip 4. This one's expensive, and I'm pretty sure there's free trials available, so use a free trial. Use a junk email address if you have to, but study.com has an amazing lesson for the Praxis 5038. It is so in-depth. I'll actually insert some screen recordings here of kind of what it consists of, but I think I really hope that didn't stop recording. Okay, whatever, we get it. Use the study.com resources for the 5038. They are wonderful. That was definitely what helped me the most, is the study.com resources. I was very lucky the organization I'm working for paid for it for us, which was really nice. But it is seriously a great tool, and considering the test itself is around $150 to sit down and take, it's almost worth the $300 investment to guarantee that you won't have to take it multiple times to pass. This one is just something personally that really helps me, but I'm graduated. I haven't had to study for anything in a few months, so it was hard to motivate myself in the midst of a pandemic to study for a test that I was sitting and taking at home. I would recommend you to go out, buy some cute notebooks, buy some cute markers, some fun colored pens, some highlighters. Do whatever you need to do to motivate yourself for studying. And for me personally, that's making notes that are very pretty. I personally used Notability on the iPad. Absolutely love that app. It's like $8 or $10, but it's a one-time purchase. It's worth it. I loved it. I'll insert some of my notes somewhere on the screen, and you can kind of get an idea of what I did. I took down a lot of literary terms, and not only is taking pretty notes, you know, aesthetically pleasing, but there's a ton of research, as I'm sure you all know, that shows how much writing something down can physically help you remember it. That's what really helped me. Notability, notebooks, cute markers, all 10 yards. I would do that to motivate yourself to study. It's worth it. The final tip I have for you that was probably the second most important after study.com was taking practice tests. This is the no-brainer. It helped me learn to pace the test. It helped me get familiar with the type of questions that I might be asked on the test. It was great, and these tests cost money, but they're definitely worth the investment. I will link the exact website I used below, but it was incredible. I took 4 practice tests in total, and if you do this, do not freak out by the test scores. These tests I can save for sure now, especially after having sat and take it. These tests are significantly more difficult than the actual practice test. And this was something I kind of read online. These tests were hard. I didn't pass a single one. And by didn't pass, I mean my highest score was 10 points below what I needed to pass. The highest score I got on a practice test was 157. And when I sat to take the real Praxis, I finished with a 184. Significantly harder. I really psyched myself out. I thought I was going to fail going into the test, and I was very surprised at the end when I saw that I had passed by a decent amount too. Take the practice tests. They're completely worth the money. I'll have them linked below. After taking the actual one, I would even argue you could lessen up on the studying and still pass, okay? Someone in my core who literally said in the chat, in our group chat, that he studied 5 hours the night before taking the test and he passed. Okay? That's not to say do that, don't do that, go in prepared, have peace of mind, but after taking the actual test, it is not as hard as the practice. It's not as hard as people are saying it is on Reddit forums. I'll insert actually some of the exact things I read because it really psyched me out about, you know, teachers who had been teaching for years and then all of a sudden had to take this test, took it, and failed like 4 or 5 times. Don't listen to that. You are capable of passing. If I can pass, you can pass. Just use these tricks, know what to expect on test day, be prepared, and you will do fine. Again, I scored way higher than I did on any of my practices, and I started studying 4 or 5 days in advance. It's worth it. Okay, so we're getting on to the final part of the video, which is what to expect on test day. If you're taking this test in person at a testing center, you're done with the video, good luck on your test. But if you're not, these are some things that I'm really glad I did, because if I didn't, I would have been so thrown off for test day. So they are going to proctor you. I've never ever used ProctorU. I had no idea what to expect. Get on the Praxis website the night before and do the mic test, the camera test, and I think there's one test that just runs to see if your laptop has enough storage to proctor the exam. It does that automatically. Run those tests. Make sure that everything is in check. And then on test day, log into your stuff 20 minutes early, because it's going to take time for the proctor and you to like get lined up. I don't know the technical terms for this. Yes, you have to like download a software. It's some like an extension on your browser. There's a bunch of stuff you have to do that I didn't realize I'd have to do, so I'm glad I came on early so I wasn't scrambling, because even though I did all this, I still started later than my actual test time, even though I logged in 15 minutes early. With all that said, some tips for ProctorU. If you're like me, I tried imagining ways that I could finesse the system, you know, maybe put some note cards up on the wall behind me. Do not do this. But ultimately my conscience got the best of me and I decided not to do it. The proctor will ask you to do a 360 view of your room. That includes everything on the walls, everything on the floor, everything. So another small tip is make sure your room's clean, just for the sake of not embarrassing yourself. Mine wasn't, so I was trying to make jokes with the person who was proctoring my exam, and I don't think he found them funny. So save yourself from that. But I think you can see behind me, I have a few prints on the wall. This like "you are magical" thing, a couple magnets, stuff that you can clearly see doesn't have like literary terms, periods, authors, genres, anything. I had to take those down on camera for him. So I don't know if every proctor is like this on ProctorU. I definitely understand why they do it, but yes, just be prepared. If you have any wall art, they'll probably ask you to take it down. And yeah, the final thing is, on test day, you will get your score right away, and what they give you is, they call it a raw score. I don't know why it's not just an actual score, because it's not like they have to grade an essay. But my raw score was very close to my actual score. I couldn't find a clear answer about this online when I googled it either. But my raw score right after I finished taking the test was a 182. And my official score, after all was said and done, after waiting the 7 days to get my official results emailed to me and sent to the partners that I'd put in, like the National Public Schools, my organization, stuff like that, was a 184. So, to my surprise, the official score was actually 2 points higher than my raw score, which was really nice. So that's how I finished with a 184. Your raw score, from what I'd been hearing, is either pretty much spot on or 1 to 2 points off. So it's a good indicator of what your real score is going to be. My last tip for test day is take a deep breath. For me, it was nerve-wracking having somebody watching me take this test. You know, there were times where I was kind of zoning off and just wanted to look up, but I didn't want to make it look like I was looking at any wall art that wasn't there anymore or anything. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. If you take the practice ones and do well on those, or fairly well, you are going to be so pleasantly surprised when you sit down test day to take the official test that it is much easier than the practice exams you took. So yeah, that concludes my video. If you have any more questions or need any more specific advice, I have my social medias linked down below. Please feel free to reach out, talk to people in the comments. Just remember, don't read too many Reddit forums. You've got this. If I can pass this test with flying colors, so can you. And hopefully you learn from my mistakes. So good luck taking your Praxis, and you got this. And finally, thank you for watching my video. If this helped you at all, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want. I've got more education content coming as I transition to being a first-year teacher. Thanks for joining me along this journey, and like and subscribe.